Welcome to our new series. This is going to be on the gut because I wanted just this class to be on the gut, but I got to like slide 60 and realized that it's probably going to have to be a little bit of a mini series, which is good because the gut is like it is foundational to health. It is where health starts. It is where the outside world meets the inside world on every level. So, you know, how many times a day do we eat? Between 1 and probably a lot, but depending on who you are, maybe 5. But if you think about it, since your gut starts in your nose, you breathe 10 to 20 times a minute. So not only is your gut about the food that you put in and that which is inside of you that comes in contact with the outside world, but it also has everything to do with everything that you breathe in and every single breath you take from the beginning of your existence on Earth until the day that you die, which is a lot. It's bacteria, viruses, protozoa, fungus, everything that's in the air also comes in contact with your gut. So it's really a beautifully, divinely designed system, just like Earth, right? It's just amazing. So the microbiome, specifically, we're talking about your gut on a bacterial level. This is the system that gets all of the credit for keeping you healthy. We are going to talk about your microbiome in general, but definitely some top natural ways to support your microbiome. Not sure we're going to get to that today because I definitely want to talk about the recipes and all of the handouts that I gave you because you got whacked with a whole lot of information when you walked in the door. Okay, so your microbiome is the most important factor that influences your overall health, your gut, and the microbes that live inside it. In your body, you have over 22,000 human genes, and then you have 3.3 million microbial genes. So you are more bacteria than you are human. Did you know that? That's insane. So like you're a walking human, and you have more you're a walking bacteria basically, and then there's some humans sprinkled in. That's 150 times more bacterial genes than human. So, your microbiome works in harmony with all of your cells and tissues. Your gut works directly with them. They digest your meals. They influence your nutrients. They digest your meals, they make essential nutrients you are unable to produce on your own, and they influence the expression of your DNA. They protect you from disease. When you eat food goes into your body, it goes down into your gut. You're actually feeding these bacteria, right? They're actually producing hormones for you. They're producing short-chain fatty acids for you. They're doing so much for you that you can't do on your own. You can't live without them. You are dead without them. And then there's this fun fact. Depending on where you read it, you have between 70 and 80% of your immune system that is located in your gut. Which means if you have a compromised microbiome, then you have a compromised immune system. They go hand in hand 100%. If you don't want to have a compromised immune system, then you need to take care of your gut first and foremost. Your microbiome regulates your appetite because of the hormones that they produce. They contribute to allergies. If you have allergies, it's because you have an unbalanced microbiome. If you have a slow metabolism, it's because you have an unbalanced microbiome. Neurological function, behavioral issues, it's because you have an unbalanced microbiome. We will, maybe next week or the week after, talk about the gut-brain axis in one of our lectures so that you understand. I mean, this is like high-end knowledge. I'm bringing it down because this is so important for every human on earth to understand this beautiful creation that you get to walk around in every single day. Like, you deserve to know how it actually works and not what they're telling you. So the microbes include fungi, bacteria, and a whole bunch of other single-celled organisms. Like I said, 3.3 billion of them. Some microbes reside on your skin, some on your internal surfaces, but most take up residence in your digestive tract. If these microbes are out of balance, it will lead to serious disease problems, increasing your risk of chronic disease, diabetes, irritable bowel syndrome, autoimmune diseases, neurological and psychiatric diseases, schizophrenia, ADHD, OCD, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia. These lists are not conclusive. They are just a small snippet. So, gut problems are super common. A multinational study showed that around 40% of humans worldwide have functional gastrointestinal disorders. Functional meaning they go to work every day, they just think it's normal. 11.7%, and this is like, you know, of the people that participated in this study, it's if they were aware of it, like, you know, how many people walk around bloated and just think that it's normal? Because you've been like that since, you know, you were a kid. That's just, you know, it's just functional. So 11.7% functional constipation. Dyspepsia is like acid reflux, heartburn. Diarrhea, irritable bowel syndrome. You can see the statistics. 20 million Americans suffer from some sort of chronic digestive disease. And out of all surgical operations, about 25% is specifically for digestive issues. So, and look at how much science has come out just around like gut health and leaky gut in the past couple of years, just because of COVID. This is not popular science yet. This is not taught in mainstream medical schools because of politics. They shut down all of that a very long time ago. Hippocrates himself said all disease starts in the gut. So that was like over 2,000 years ago, and he knew it. So, you know. So, warning, warning, warning. Occasional diarrhea, constipation, abdominal pain, bloating are common from time to time. But if these symptoms are a common occurrence, they are a warning sign of a bigger or soon to be bigger issue. So, I mean, we don't have to do a show of hands in the room, but I'm pretty sure that there's a lot of people in here, including myself and my husband, who have issues like this, right? But if they're more than, you know, I ate too much at Christmas, or we went camping and we ate way out of what we normally eat, then, you know, you definitely want to address this before it turns into one of the diseases that we've already stated and soon to be stating some more of. But just know that making small changes in your lifestyle, that's what this class is for. Starting tomorrow, you're going to take this knowledge and you're going to bring it home and you're going to look in your shelves and your pantry and you're going to say, okay, we're going to switch this out, we're going to switch this out, we're going to switch this out, and we're just going to pivot a little bit. And you're not going to go back. And then the next time you go to the store, you're going to reach for something else, and you're going to reach for something else, and it's just going to be a very slow progression, and you will see, I promise, a shift in everything, because your gut touches everything. Your mood, your sleep, your blood sugar stability, that would have to do with mood, but you totally understand what I'm saying. Your ability to take a deep breath. If you have junk in your gut comes up, I should have had a picture of that. Your gut you know, your esophagus comes down, you eat, your esophagus comes down, it hits your stomach, which is like here, and then it goes into your small intestine, which is this big ball right here of like 23 feet of like a lot of stuff. And then it spits out all of that digested food into this 6 feet of colon that goes up this side, over this side, and down this side. So if you have big rocks of constipation stuck here, you're not going to take a deep breath. And breath, like I said, is not only part of your microbiome, but it's what connects you to being present in the moment. It's, you know, what God gave us to become alive. It's important. It's so important. The gut is super adaptive. If you start feeding it the right things, starting tomorrow, like I said, you're going to notice small changes have huge results. Positive effects for your entire system, since the gut it's so intimately related with everything. So, where do you start? Well, let's look at some of your risk factors so that you can identify in your life. This is like the not so fun part. Like, we actually have to identify the things in our life that we're doing that we could be doing better. But you are in this class so that you can develop healthy habits. So you need to know where you're taking a misstep. So, multiple factors influence your gut health. I did like this slide, this picture specifically, just because it does highlight a pretty good overall depiction of the things that definitely influence your microbiome. Pharmaceuticals being top, diet also being top. Geography, where you live. Africa is one of the last places on earth that they can see like an original indigenous microbiome. I mean, they have I was just listening to a lecture, and there's some tribes that have like the same bacteria in their gut that is on zebras, like, because that's part of their lifestyle. Every couple of years when the zebras come in, and there's a lot of them and they can eat them, and it's a real old microbiome. Like, our microbiome in the United States looks nothing like this because of down at the bottom of this wheel, the birthing process. It starts with the birthing process. How many people in this room have had a cesarean? Totally different microbiomes in your children than in a vaginal delivery. Completely different. Because when a child passes through the birth canal, it gets covered, it breathes in everything that is intimately connected to the mother's womb. But when you take a child out via cesarean, they're not getting that. And those bacteria actually are some of the first bacteria that go into the baby and colonize their gut first. That's how, you know, it's a life-saving measure, don't get me wrong, but it's just we have so sidestepped from what we were originally created to have in us as humans. Infant feeding methods. This is another huge one. You know, soy, hey, hi. You know, breastfed babies as opposed to bottle-fed and even, you know, soy-based formulas. My daughter, the one that has the autism diagnosis, we fed her genetically modified Isomil soy bottles her entire baby bottle feeding years because, one, I had no idea, and two, it was the only thing that she could tolerate, and I was not breastfeeding. Like, what? Are you kidding me? Like, this is what people do? Like, stress. If you don't exercise, if you do exercise. Let's see, lifestyle stages. Yeah, when you're a baby versus if you're elderly, you're going to have a completely different microbiome, and what your life looked like all that time and how you either, you know, assisted the development of your microbiome or you assaulted it. Not knowing, because most of us don't know until this class, how to care for yourself properly. So, like, how lucky are you guys? Right? That alone is like, I'm so grateful, like, I got picked for the team because this is ridiculously rich information to have. So, pharmaceuticals, let's talk about antibiotics. Antibiotic is an antibacterial, and we are talking about bacteria that are good for you that live in your gut. So, the overuse of antibiotics has led to a host of issues. The ones that are prescribed to humans, the ones that are given to animals that then humans eat, and then the ones that are sprayed on your food, specifically glyphosate, which is registered as an antibiotic, not as a pesticide, it's an antibiotic. They are non-selective, so you don't take them, they don't go into your gut and say, oh, you're a pathogen, I'm going to attack you, but I'm going to leave friendly Henry over here alone. They don't do that. They go in and they wipe out what they need to wipe out, and then they're done. So the infection that you have, needs to be relatively significant, and hopefully from this point on, you will then try all natural measures first before you put an antibiotic into your system, because you now understand that there are very big consequences to taking them. They have also created an abundance of antibacterial resistant germs like MRSA. I'm sure you've all heard of that. That was fun if a patient got that when I used to work in the hospital, because there was like nothing you could do about it. You had to wait it out or give them like crazy strong antibiotics. And now, on this side of it, it's like, wow, like you just completely napalmed their entire microbiome. Like, what health shot do they have? Now they're completely dependent on the system, because that's what you're doing.
I just want to add to that, 80% of the antibiotics produced in this country are given to animals. 80%. It might be even higher now. So if you're drinking like cow's milk, or if you're eating just conventionally raised, industrial raised meat, chickens, you're getting small doses of antibiotics every time that you eat. And what does it take? If you take a dose of antibiotics, doesn't it take over a year to build up your microbiome back up?
Yeah,
a year to 1 to 2 years?
That I read in here, I think I have a slide in here, it says like you could have residual effects up to 10 years. They won't grow back, and some strains will never grow back. They give antibiotics to animals because conventionally raised animals in this country, sorry if this is a repeat for some of you, are not fed the way that they're supposed to be fed, so they are inherently sick from the get-go. And then, so then they have to give them antibiotics.
Plus they're
so
chained up together. And,
yeah, there's like so many
buildings, and like chickens, for instance, there could be 100,000 chickens in one building. And there's dead ones amongst the live ones laying, and they're just all together. Same thing with cows too.
So the thing with meat, and we never actually really had a whole plant-based lecture, which is fine because it doesn't need to go that direction, but the thing with meat is that if you're going to eat meat, which is fine, be cognizant of how healthy the animal was, because you are what you eat, and then you are what your body can do with what you eat. So if you're eating a sick animal that had to be given antibiotics to sustain its life, then it's probably not feeding you nutritionally, which is the reason why we eat ultimately. Yes, emotional reasons, there are a lot of reasons why people eat. And, we can go to my grandmother's house and she knows nothing about this, and I'm not going to turn down anything that lovely woman makes for me. Totally not. But in my environment, I'm going to make sure that the meat that I'm putting into my body is, of the best quality that I can afford to get, and that it's clean, and it's going to be serving me, because I don't want it to be a waste, because it requires a lot of energy for your body to break down meat into the little tiny building blocks that it then needs to take to assimilate into your body, which at that point, if it's a sick animal, is like barely any. So, try to eat clean meat. If you need some ideas, reach out, because, you know, there's a lot. There's a lot, actually. There's a lot of resources for clean meat. Okay. Broad spectrum antibiotics are even a bigger bomb. They reduce microbial diversity in the gut drastically. They reduce protective and beneficial species and promote the colonization of opportunistic pathogens such as C. diff. Anybody heard of it?
Mm-hmm.
And antibiotic-associated diarrhea, which is very hard to get rid of. Some bacterial groups don't recover completely after antibiotics at all. Therefore, even a short course can have very long-term effects. Processed foods. This is like my favorite topic because it makes me so mad. Highly processed foods, sauces, chips, desserts, drinks, processed animal foods such as red meat, bacon, support an unhealthy gut species associated with high blood sugar, high cholesterol, and inflammation. Processed animal foods like, you know, deli meats, stuff like that. Now, let's talk about that for a second. So if you took meat, like let's just think about this logically for a second. If you took meat out of your fridge and you put it outside in July and left it there for a day, what would happen?
Get ruined. Oil goes in
Right.
the garbage.
Yeah. Turns rancid, grows all gross stuff, right? Okay. You take the meat out of the fridge and you eat it. 98.6 degrees outside in July, 98.6 degrees inside your body. What's the difference?
The bacteria.
You broke down the meat.
True, you do have that. You definitely do have that. You still have a similar effect, though, happening in your body. This is why it causes inflammation. Because from an evolutionary standpoint, it was definitely something that we need to do. Totally fine. To this day, having some meat, like I said, totally fine. Occasionally, not a big deal. But the fact of the matter is that it definitely leads to inflammation because of like that fact alone. Do you want to add anything? Because you're very good at this topic.
It's a process called leukocytosis. It's a term that I'll never forget because I was like, what? As soon as you put the meat into your body starts to attack it. It basically has like an autoimmune effect because the body's like, what is this stuff? I'm not supposed to be eating this. So it attacks it and it causes inflammation, which is the body's reaction to any kind of injury, whether it's if it's a local thing, if it's a cut, you're inflamed. If it's within your body, you also become inflamed. But yeah, I can go deeper in it, but I don't wanna.
We can get to that.
But yeah, your body reacts almost immediately adversely to meat within the body. And then, we're not carnivores, what people might think and argue. We're definitely not carnivores. I could do a whole lecture on it, but we're definitely plant eaters. Our bodies have a very long digestive system. Carnivores have a very short digestive tract because they're meant to eat flat and get it right out.
Because of the
Ours
the
is super
heat
long.
effect
She
that I
said,
was saying.
it's like, 23 feet of small intestine, 6 feet of colon, it just goes on and on. So meat never makes it out. It never makes it out. There's,
fully.
we all have undigested meat in our,
Who was the cowboy?
John Wayne.
When he died, they
20-something
found how many
pounds.
pounds of
Yeah,
meat
like
in his
65,
digestive
I think.
tract?
And
Yeah, it was like
Elvis.
60-something.
Yeah,
And
one had
Elvis,
80.
we've had this
Yeah,
conversation.
yes.
On average, most
One was
people have about
Elvis and
7
one
to 10
was,
pounds.
So
meat eater.
it's The word is putrefaction. So in a carnivore, right, he's right. And that was kind of the point that I was trying to make that I couldn't form the whole thing in my head. A carnivore eats raw meat. It has a very short digestive tract. So the meat doesn't stay in your body, for their body, for very long. It goes right out. And plus their pH in their system is way higher than ours. So it can actually tolerate all of that and break it down really fast, take the energy and expend it out because they need to eat that so they have fast energy so they can run and hunt and get it. We're not that way. We have an alkaline system. When you eat a meat, you know, like I said, just do it, enjoy it, make sure it's clean. It's not supposed to be the mainstay of your dish. Okay, specifically, studies show that processed foods and animal-derived foods are consistently associated with a higher abundance of pathogenic bacteria. We just talked about that. Specifically bacteria that produce endotoxins. They, like how our good bacteria that love us, they release hormones and they release short-chain fatty acids. These bacteria release endotoxins that increase inflammation and damage your gut. Conventionally grown foods. This is where Satan hides out in our food system. This. Exposure to multiple pesticides. So when you eat conventionally grown foods, meaning non-organic, meaning everything on the Dirty Dozen Clean 15 list, put that on your fridge, bring it to the grocery store with you, memorize that list. It changes every year. In April, the Environmental Working Group puts out a new Clean 15 and Dirty Dozen for that year, so that's why yours says 2022. In April, I will give you 2023. On that list, the dirty ones, please buy organic. Except, on the clean side, you will see sweet corn. You will always see sweet corn there, because the tricky thing with sweet corn is a genetically modified crop, a GMO, which a lot of you got that lecture on, so you know how I feel about that. That in and of itself is a registered insecticide. The cool thing that they did with corn is they put a toxin inside the corn so that when an insect eats the corn, the toxin gets released inside their gut, and guess what? Drills holes inside the guts, the insect's intestinal lining, so it kills the insect. No way! This toxin must be able to differentiate between an insect's gut and our gut, right? No. So we're just bigger. So we eat a lot more corn, and it drills holes all over the place, and GMOs are one of the biggest contributors to leaky gut. Biggest contributors. Corn is a genetically modified crop. So it's not dirty because there aren't a large amount of pesticides on the outside, but it is in and of itself horrible. So buy organic frozen, Whole Foods sells organic corn on the cob in the summertime. Any produce that you get at Whole Foods is non-GMO. The stuff on the shelves, not necessarily, but the produce is all non-GMO. Just so you know. There is a massive wave of regenerative agriculture, of organic farming. People are waking up to this in droves, that this is really important. Soil health, utmost importance. Doing this monocrop corn for 80 miles on 100,000 acres is not the way our ancestors farmed. It is killing all of us here. So like, why do we continue to do it? So it's a very broken system. So, you know, we're on the forefront, and you shop with your dollar, or you change politics and you change policy with your dollar, unfortunately. So I'm not going to not buy organic apples and organic oranges because I am like sticking it to them. Like, no way. Okay, glyphosate is a registered antibiotic. It is sold as a pesticide and herbicide. It is the #1 sold pesticide in the United States. It is in our water. It is everywhere.
It's the active ingredient in Roundup, if you don't know what glyphosate is.
Yeah,
I'm sure you know what Roundup is. So.
The famous weed killer that's everywhere. Studies show significant decrease in healthy bacteria. Studies show exposure induces depression, anxiety, and anxiety due to the gut-brain axis. So we'll talk about this next week. But again, I mean, if you're damaging your gut and your intestines because you're eating a whole lot of this stuff, or it's getting into your foods, or this is just what you're doing, it's going to affect you mentally completely. Because it's, when you put glyphosate in human cells in a petri dish, it rips the human cells apart. Genetically modified food is genetically modified so it can withstand high levels of glyphosate being dumped on it so that they can combat all the weeds and everything else around it so that they don't have to have people out there picking weeds and stuff. So, I mean, that's why things are genetically modified, so that they can get poured on more pesticides.
They're called Roundup Ready crops.
There you
Made
go.
by Monsanto.
Which is now owned by Bayer.
And they just changed the name of them. They're not called Roundup Ready anymore. They're called Liberty Links.
Oh, Lord.
I just learned that.
Liberty.
Yeah, isn't that
Yeah, and I
nice?
think they're
Nice
trying to
and
change the
convenient.
name of glyphosate to something.
So, yeah, Monsanto.
They just
was
need to change
bought
the
out by
name to
Bayer
keep you guessing. So
for billions.
GMOs have a hugely negative effect on the microbiome. They're genetically modified to withstand large amounts of pesticides, specifically glyphosate, and like I said, they tear human cells apart in a petri dish, or they are designed to literally drill holes in intestinal lining, which, you know, sounds great. Here are your GMOs up to this point in time. Corn, like I said, is a registered insecticide. Oh, I don't have soy on here. Oh, Marcinko. Corn, canola. So let's get that out of your kitchen. That's also not on that healthy oil list. You will not see canola, which is, they named it that because rapeseed oil sounds great, right?
It's what, Canada oil, I think. That's where they got the name from.
Oh, yeah,
Canola.
right, correct, yeah. Sugar beets. All of the sugar beets, if it doesn't say cane sugar and it just says sugar, it comes from sugar beets. Genetically modified. Cotton, this is important. If you have females in your life that get their period, please inform them that they from now on must use organic, non-GMO cotton when they're using that time of the month. No wonder why cervical cancer and everything is skyrocketing. They want to give you vaccines for it. I just like to change to organic cotton. That makes a little bit more sense. Let's just start there. Papaya, summer squash, zucchini, animal products, because they feed, not only do they give antibiotics to these sick animals, they feed like cows with genetically modified corn. What are cows designed to eat?
Grass.
Right, not corn. So they're sick because they're eating corn, and then it's genetically modified on top of it. And then, so that meat is, you know, now becoming part of your meat.
Unless it's organic.
Unless it's organic.
Yeah.
They're not.
And I'm talking, the price point when you, I know that a lot of, like, so if you go to a grocery store and you are buying organic food on the shelf in a box, it is expensive. If you are talking about produce, you're maybe talking about $1 more. So I'll pay $1 more. That's totally
What
fine.
if you peel the skin off?
No, because it's in the flesh. It is the flesh.
It's how it's grown, so it's part of its DNA.
Right.
So can you get organic apples though, and that's okay?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you could eat that, because if you're saying GMO food.
So they just
apples-
started genetically modifying apples and potatoes
Oh, okay.
because they
So they're not
don't
all-
want to, they're genetically modifying them so that when you cut them, they don't turn brown, because in the United States, we can't have anything that's not pretty.
That's why I like misfits.
Yeah, right? I know. They're smart. That's smart
So
marketing.
should you get organic potatoes?
I would anyways, just because anything that's grown in the soil, I want to make sure that, because that's ultimately where your nutrition is coming from. Unless you're doing seaweed and algae, your mineral content is what is in that soil. So if you're eating conventionally grown food that's a root vegetable, I want to make sure that it's of the best quality.
So what about
because
carrots? Carrots would be the same then, right?
yeah. And again, for a huge bag of carrots,
I know,
$2.50.
it's
It's
really
not
yeah.
right. Like produce is not, and that's all I'm talking about is produce. Microbes and enzymes, and this is talking about more like processed food. They don't even put that on the label. That's for stuff that they use more in processing food. Between 1996 and 2011, in the United States, 183,000, oh, I missed a zero, tons there was an increase in pesticides due to GMO crops alone. That's an insane amount. So birth interventions, like I said, I was getting off of food for a second. Research has shown that routine birth interventions may be not beneficial for the baby long term. I'm talking about like the scheduled C-sections that you have to do because you have to fit it in your vacation and you are really scared to give a vaginal delivery and like that type. I'm not talking about an emergency or any sort of anything like that. The internal vaginal exams continuing to disrupt the natural microbiota that lives within a woman's vagina. Internal fetal heart rate monitoring, inductions, pain medicine, and all increase the risk of C-sections anyways. And then C-sections versus vaginal deliveries has a huge impact on beneficial microbes, like I said a couple minutes ago. Or, a while ago. Bifidobacterium, and then that one, bacteroids. Look at the ones down on the bottom. Those are fun to say. They're often lacking in babies born with a C-section, but harmful bacteria associated with hospital environments, Enterobacs and Clostridium and Staphylococcus are common. Actually, some good doctors, though, however, are now, when they do a cesarean section, they will
Swap the babies.
take all of the vaginal secretion and bathe the baby as best they can, because this is now becoming a thing and people are understanding it. Studies show that babies born via C-section have an increased risk of asthma, type 1 diabetes, obesity, and gut-related conditions, obviously. The greatest wealth is health. For sure. Your intestinal, so here's another risk factor, because we're still under the risk factors. Stress, and ongoing chronic stress, which is what most of us in the United States have, especially if you have a very busy schedule, children or appointments or doctors and the list that goes on, work. Your intestinal mucosa is full of nerve fibers and neuron cell bodies that are independent, that directly connect your gut with your nervous system and your brain. Therefore, your brain can easily affect your gut, and your gut can easily affect your brain. We know this because you have gut feelings about stuff, or when you get anxious about stuff without even knowing you're anxious, your stomach hurts. Like if any of you have children that were like, my stomach hurts, oh, well, what's going on in school today? I have a test, or like, I'm gonna miss you, or anything like that. This is why it's a legit, it's not a phenomenon, it's not, oh, you're whatever, it's a real thing. Studies show that your gut is especially vulnerable to the presence of chronic stress. It changes your microbiome, it changes your gastric secretions, it changes your gut mobility, as well as the permeability of your intestinal wall, which means your intestinal wall is like not a picket fence, because a picket fence has spaces, but your intestinal wall is like a fence that's like this. So permeability is supposed to be really tight, and it's only supposed to allow what is supposed to go through, and that's it. But if you are under a lot of stress and there's other factors going on, and that permeability kind of opens a little bit, now you've got a problem, because stuff's getting through that's not supposed to get through. And not only does stress cause that, but there's a lot of other things like gluten.
Oh, there you go.
Perfect example. So here are nerves. This is a very silly drawing, but here are nerves coming from your nervous system. This is your intestinal wall. This is your intestinal wall. This is where the food would come through, okay? So here's your muscle cells, your circulatory system's over here. I think I have an even crazier slide. Are you ready? Ah! So I just wanted to show you that it's direct from the brain. These nerves come down. Your vagus nerve is like the most beautiful creation ever. It's so cool. Come down from the brain, they innervate your stomach, they innervate, this is your, so esophagus, food comes down, here's your stomach, it gets churned up in here, it goes down into your small intestine, woo, it has like so much fun. It goes up here, and then the toilet's down here. This is your rectum. So this is the inside of your small intestine, and you can see here's their cells, they're innervating, so like it's a very intimate system, very intimate. Like I said, we'll talk about the gut-brain axis, but like unresolved trauma, the composition of your gut microbiome can be indefinitely impacted by intense traumatic experiences. Studies have found that those who have a history of trauma in their early lives have distinctly different gut microbiomes than those who have had the same digestive issue but no trauma. And then people with neither digestive issues nor trauma, which is really cool. I didn't realize that. I know that you store unresolved trauma in your tissues and in a lot of other places, but I didn't realize that it affected your microbiome that way. A sedentary lifestyle. Physical exercise impacts the gut microbiome amazingly by increasing the presence of beneficial bacteria and by improving microbial diversity. And I don't mean like you have to get out and break a sweat. I mean you just have to move and be cognizant about it. If you're standing at a cash register and you just like bend your legs up and down a little bit, like just get your fluids moving, that will do so much for you. Yes, if you could get your heart rate up a little bit too, but like, you know, let's just be cognizant of movement. A sedentary lifestyle leads to a loss of microbial diversity in a huge way, resulting in chronic low-grade inflammation, which you don't want. Inflammation leads to chronic disease, especially if it's chronic inflammation. Chronic inflammation leads to chronic disease. Alcohol, this one's, pretty obvious. Alcohol can alter the strains of gut bacteria, changing your intestinal microenvironment. It also decreases your innate immune response, making your gut more susceptible to pathogens just in and of itself. And then alcohol consumption causes body-wide inflammation that's not just located in the gut. So you're gonna just, if that's chronic. Birth control medication. All birth control meds contain a small amount of estrogen and progesterone, which I didn't know that progesterone is the synthetic form of progesterone. So, it's all synthetic in birth control. These hormones work to inhibit your body's natural hormones, which are produced in your gut. A lot of them are. And studies show that estrogen impacts gut function, disrupts the function of the intestinal barrier and contributes to blood clotting, and it also, estrogen enhances cellular proliferation in your immune system. It decreases that, it alters your gut microbiome. Yeah, you get it. Anybody been traveling and had food poisoning?
Oh, thank God.
I had a client that 15, 20 years ago, she had an incident and she's still suffering, and I mean on a huge level, and it was because of, a trip to Thailand or something like that where she was a tour guide. Most often caused by eating or drinking things that are contaminated with bacteria, viruses, or parasites. These germs settle in your intestines, causing inflammation. The common ones are E. coli, Salmonella, and Campylobacter. Gastrointestinal infections can disrupt the gut microbiome. They trigger persistent health problems. They can last for years. Oh, this is the thing about the 10 years. Studies show that those with a history of bacterial infections can report symptoms up to 10 years. Mold exposure, really quick. They can interfere with nutrient absorption, leading to further gut imbalances, oxidative stress. I think you're getting the point. I think that's inadequate sleep. This one's really big. Just like every other aspect of your psychology, your physiology, your gut also runs on a circadian rhythm. When you don't get enough rest, your microbes in your gut produce toxins, creating an unfavorable shift. There are bacteria in your gut whose only job is to restore and rebuild and clean up your microbiome. That happens during rest and digest periods, but rest periods when you're asleep, when there's no food in your gut, when your body is quiet and it has the opportunity to do that. So if you're not giving yourself adequate sleep with an empty stomach, you're not like eating a ton before you go to bed and then sleeping for 4 hours and then waking up and being up for 3 hours and then maybe sleeping for that's not going to do it. Adequate quality sleep is where it cleans your gut out and it repairs damaged cells and it fixes any holes, and that's when it does its job. And then dental infections. This is the last one, I promise. This was really interesting though. I didn't know that dental infections, well, because your gut starts in your mouth, right? So they've shown that oral bacteria can translocate to the gut and change that, and you can have a huge immune defense uprising. Various chronic diseases like obesity and diabetes have been linked to childhood oral diseases, which is crazy. They can link anything to anything. Oral infections commonly warrant antibiotic use, which we've talked about. Okay, let's look at this really quick, because this one is really a big wealth of information. So on top of, and we haven't gotten to like the applicable things to do yet. So obviously, we're going to start buying these organic things if they're on the dirty dozen, or if they're on the dirty dozen list, plus the corn. You're going to definitely check for genetically modified food. But here's some top tips to just improve your digestion overall. Exercise is number 1. Don't overeat. Take time for gratitude. Say a prayer.
Praise God.
Amen. Reduce or eliminate processed foods. Right there, that's going to do a tremendous amount. We did do a whole lecture on, processed foods and marketing, and when you're buying processed foods, you want to look for a very small ingredients list, and all of the ingredients on them, you need to know what they are and where they come from, no chemicals. That alone will literally do so much for your health right there. Chew your food, because when you're swallowing huge chunks of food and you're not chewing them, it's not like you have a trash compactor. It's a very delicate system. I mean, it kicks ass, but it's a very, very delicate system. We're talking about tissue here, and very intimate, very precise, precision technology. So do it a favor and chew your food. You're just going to get more nutrient absorption anyways, because you're increasing the surface area of everything that you're putting in when you break it down into small little bits. Mm-hmm. Eat more fiber. Fiber is what feeds your gut bacteria. That is the food for your good gut bacteria. Add some lemon to your water. Most people actually think that they take a proton pump inhibitor like Zantac because they get heartburn. It's not actually because they have high stomach acid. It's because they have low stomach acid. Mm-hmm. So that goes completely in the face of Western medicine, because you will never have a doctor coming in here and understand. Unless you go to a functional medicine doctor or a naturopath, then they'll understand what's actually happening. But it boosts your stomach acid. It'll do huge. Raw fermented apple cider vinegar in the morning, a fresh squeezed lemon into your lemon juice will do really good for you. You can actually take a stomach acid test in the morning. I think it's baking soda and a little bit of water, and you wait 15 minutes and you see if you start burping or not, then you have low stomach acid. You've got to go on Google and look at how that's done, but you could do it at home. Drinking water is massive, because if you're not fully hydrated, then your stool is sitting in your colon and it's slowing everything down, and the longer your stool is sitting in your colon, then the more toxins it's producing. You need to get a lot of water in there to help pass things through and just to keep your cells hydrated anyways. Add in probiotics, a really good, fermented foods, like Pat was saying. I can totally give you recommendations on the higher quality probiotics. And bring in your digestive enzymes. Anybody who is suffering with gas, bloating, indigestion, you know, they're getting bloated after they eat, they have lower stomach acid, you want to, for a short amount of time, add in some digestive enzymes before you eat. The food that eating raw food, your food is supposed to have the enzymes in it to help break it down inside your body. Yes, your pancreas produces enzymes to help digest your food, but it's supposed to work in conjunction with the food that you're eating, and we don't eat enzyme-rich food at all, so taking some digestive enzymes to help the process along will greatly change your digestive ability. You will see immediate change if you start taking a good digestive enzyme with your meals. It will do nothing but help break it down. So, the other ones are kind of self-explanatory. I gave you some natural sugar substitutes because you want to get rid of any sort of white powders in your house, whether it be flour or sugar. Switch it out with a natural substitute. Coconut sugar is amazing. It's a 1-to-1 ratio for changing stuff up. Stevia is a little bit of it takes a little bit of time to get used to. Raw honey is amazing. Date sugar is amazing. Maple syrup, molasses, these are all natural sugar substitutes, meaning they're rich in minerals, they're rich in vitamins, they have some natural fibers in them, so they slow down your, they don't spike your blood sugar as much. It's not such a shock to your liver. It doesn't contribute to fatty liver like a white, refined, processed, regular cane sugar would. And then your healthy cooking guides, I wanted to give this to you now. This is really important because, you know, I know a lot of people fry stuff, a lot of people cook with oil, like
Is that what she's looking
olive oil is not, yeah,
for?
oils.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. Like olive oil, you shouldn't be sauteing stuff in, right? So this just is a really good heat guide so that you know which oils are good for what temperatures. Don't do any palm oil though. That's the one on the bottom. Stay away from palm oil, it's horrible.
And still organic if you can.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, not many of these are dirty things like hemp oil, flax oil. I'm not concerned. Avocado oil, fine. I use avocado oil, coconut oil. I use ghee if I can afford it. And we have hemp oil, flax oil that I put on salads, olive oil.